this here is a WEIRD PC case. And I know what you're thinking, Greg, how much weirder can it possibly get? You've built in what, how many now? Maybe a dozen weird, unorthodox PC cases out there. This is getting redundant. My friends, I can assure you, this is unlike anything you've ever seen on this channel. This thing is shaped like a pyramid. That's right. For some reason, I listened to you all and decided to buy a frickin' pyramid PC case. As stupid as that sounds, I'm also very intrigued, I must admit. And in this video, we're going to unbox it, we're going to assemble it, and we're going to build in it. It definitely needs some assembling because it's certainly not shaped like a pyramid as is. And at the end of this one, I'm gonna tell you whether or not I think it's worth your hard-earned. Probably not, but we'll see. Stay with me.
NZXT's H7 series cases offer plenty of hardware support and a clean aesthetic sure to complement any build. Choose between white or black variants as well as standard, flow, or elite trims for the right mixture of airflow and beauty. There's plenty of room up top for a fan rad combo larger than just a single 120 or 140, and support for up to a 360mm up front exists for beefy cooling wherever it's needed. You'll also find several fans included depending on the model. If you choose the white one, you'll get white fans, so that's nice. NZXT cases are overall great values as you'll find, and you can learn more about them by clicking the link below.
So, right away, we are greeted by a bunch of broken styrofoam. It's all just, yeah, kind of not leaving the best feeling. Oh my gosh, this is a mess. Oh, and there's our base. It looks like the bottom of the pyramid. Now, one thing you'll notice right away, the base of the pyramid is a hexagon. So by definition, this is a hexagonal pyramid, not a square pyramid, a traditional like Egyptian style pyramid you might think of, or a triangular one. I think this gives it a little more play, a little more room to work with at the base, because you'll notice the motherboard actually sits right on top of this. This is what you'll find in the remainder of the box. We've got our tempered glass panels. We've got these rails here that I think hold those up, because those are gonna be sitting kind of angled up against that base there. We've got our cap, of course, 6 sides, and then a few other bits and pieces. You're gonna get your bag of screws and bolts, your slot covers, and then also a manual, which we're definitely gonna need. The one thing I noticed right away, apart from the sketchy packaging, well, that has paid dividends already. I don't know if you can see that on camera. That's a major scratch in one of the tempered glass panels. It's just not really the best first impression of a case that costs well north of $100. This is the latest 2022 open game case designed by the Kediers team. The elegant and unique appearance fully reflects the personality of the modern people and shows your noble taste. Appeal to reason, I see. So it looks like we need to assemble the side panels and these rails first, and that'll be one large piece that you'll then set on top of the base after you build the PC inside of it. I also love how this entire manual acts like all these pieces are labeled, like you need to take out D, F, H accessories. Like, none of this stuff is labeled. None of it came with labels, so we're just shooting in the dark here. If it looks like I know what I'm doing, I can assure you, your assumption is misplaced, my friend. I am winging this 100%. Oh, and by the way, I'm certain I've stripped about half of these threads already. Overall, just screaming low quality so far. So just a quick mock-up then, so far, of how this is gonna look. Essentially, this multi-sided panel here is just gonna sit like a hat on top of our base. And I mean, you're either gonna love it or hate it. I imagine most of you think this is absolutely ugly as sin, but it's different. I will say, still getting the low quality vibes. There's a lot of scratches and things like I'm just seeing more and more scratches the more I stare at this. It's very dirty and dusty. There's like this weird hair fiberglass stuff everywhere. I don't know. Not really all that enthusiastic about it at this point. Usually I'm excited to assemble cases. It's like a different take on a PC build because most cases are already pre-assembled out of the box. But I'm kind of just annoyed by this one already. And the fact that I paid a pretty penny for it is not helping things. Now the process I've found that's the easiest for installing these glass panels, because again, the manual's not really helping me much, is to slide each panel in from the bottom. You gotta wiggle it between that little bracket we mentioned just a tad earlier, and then kind of let it sit like that. Cross your fingers and hope it doesn't fall. And then wiggle your arms all the way back here to tighten them down with these thumb screws. I do like the fact that the thumb screws are hidden. You actually secure the panels from the inside of this giant frame which means, yeah, you can't see them. On the downside, it means that they are a bit more difficult to install. Ooh, and I can only imagine how difficult installing the last panel is gonna be, because at that point I won't have any access for a hand, so I have to come in from below. It's just all around really weird. Whew. Alrighty, so finally together. You can imagine with 6 tempered glass panels on something like this, it weighs quite a bit. I'd wager somewhere in the realm of 15 to 20 pounds. So be aware of that going into this. It's friggin' heavy. So now we can finally start with the actual PC build, and we're gonna begin with an X670E Aorus Master motherboard, which means we're going AM5 and the newest Ryzen processors. Value-wise, these might not be the best platforms to opt for, but I gotta say, this thing looks frickin' sexy. Now, so far, I've gotta say, component assembly's actually been a breeze. This is kind of like an open-air test bench as it stands, which means you can access pretty much everything very easily. I'm gonna go with more of a mid-range 7700X for this build, and we'll gently lower it into position. Socket is LGA now. My oh my, have times changed. Lower the retention arm, and we can save this for later. Here we go. I'm going with a tower cooler for this build, merely because this is more about the case than it is the actual build itself. This is less practical, but should get the job done. It's gonna be torn down right after this anyway. Now I'm actually curious, I wasn't planning on using this card for this build, but I just wanna know what the tolerances are for larger cards. I'm gonna put this 4080 in here, and it's freaking massive. Just wanna see if we can slide this top panel on. I'm fairly certain the answer to that is no, but why not? Let's give it a shot. Ooh, yeah. The answer to that is a big fat no. So larger graphics cards, they just, they ain't gonna work here. Our power supply, I believe, just slides in from the side here. If you had a radiator or something here, you'd have to come in from the other side. But anyway, it just kind of sits like that. There is ventilation below. I don't see a dust filter included though, so mind that. And with everything wired in, it's time to get our graphics card in here. I also just realized the PCI slot bracket thing that comes with the case only supports 3 actual slots. You could, I guess, technically connect things further down. I'm not sure if there are holes in the chassis for those expandable cards, but it is kind of a weird choice. I think because the way that this case slopes might cut off some larger capture cards and definitely a second full-size graphics card. They wanted to just play it safe. So again, just another compromise with a weird shape like this. And yes, I'm still opting for a larger format card to test the actual tolerances of the case to see what we can fit in here and what we can't. So this is a larger 5700 XT from Red Devil, and yeah, looks really good in here. I was looking for zip tie points to cable manage a bit under here because it's messy. I'll show you some B-roll clips. I've got a bunch of zip ties. Kediers includes zip ties with the case, but I don't see anywhere to actually use them unless you just want to zip tie cables to other cables, which really doesn't always get the job done. Just, yeah, another negative for this one for me. It matters a lot. In a case that's this expensive, you need to be able to route your cables effectively and cleanly, because oftentimes these are show builds and you're going to be displaying these at events like CES and Computex. So you want your cable management to look good. You're going to need zip ties like these, or maybe Velcro straps, something a little more fancy. But the fact that you have no place to actually tie any of your cables to means that it's just going to look like a spaghetti monster under there. Not feeling it. But anyway, here is what she looks like with the dunce cap off. That's what I've called it now. And I mean, from the top, you know, it looks pretty clean. It looks, again, like an open air test bench. It's just when you get underneath that you realize things get a bit messy. Maybe not from this side as much. We cleaned it up there. But on the radiator side, yes. So if you have if you have a radiator assembly there, it probably would help to hide and mask a lot of the cabling that we have kind of just stuffed under there. So we'll leave it as is for now. Again, there's nowhere to really tie those cables to the frame, which is a disappointment. But yeah, elsewhere it looks fine. Now we got to get the dunce cap on, and we'll power it on, make sure that everything works. Again, this thing is super freaking heavy. We've got the smaller cutout up front so that we can access our front I/O, which is 2 USB 3s, 1 USB 2, a headphone microphone jack, not unified, and then a power button with an LED. Yeah, here she is. By the way, you can see just how close our RX 5700 XT comes to this side panel. So reference the dimensions of this card. I'll put this in the description along with all the other parts you see here. Reference that with this case. If you do so desire to build in it, you're not gonna have much more room than this. Oh, yes, fantastic. And of course, the giant scratch on one of these tempered glass panels would be on the front panel. That is, yeah, splendid. At this point, I would normally throw a few B-roll clips your way, but I'm really struggling to get this entire thing in a single shot. I've got to pull so far back in this office to get this thing in frame. Like that right there is pretty good, maybe a bit lower, but there you go. That's what it looks like. You could put a fan up top too, I guess. We could have done that, but then you have like a weird cable. You'd have to like tape a cable running down the side of this, connecting to the board. They don't really have a channel for it, I don't think, built into the frame, which is another shame. Just put like an RGB fan up there or something, and then it looks like it's, I don't know, a lit pyramid. It's just all around really goofy. Unique, yes, but also, in my opinion, which I know not everyone will agree with, it's goofy. Oh, and not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but the dunce cap is not actually bolted to the frame, or the base. This is its own frame, I think, but it's not bolted to the base at all, which means you could very easily, well, minus the weight, you could move this around, pick it up all you want. It just kind of sits on top of the base. And that would mean that shipping is kind of sort of a no-go unless you can find a way to mechanically fasten these two pieces together. Let's go ahead and power it on now. I know I look freaking tiny compared to this massive thing. It is what it is. Let's see. Oh! Why does that sound awful? Is there something clipping the fan? Now I gotta pull this whole thing back off again. Aha! This be quiet cable got shoved into the fan. I think we're okay now. So let's pick this massive thing back up one more time. I feel like this is an accident waiting to happen. Really not a fan of this. This is probably about as dark a tempered glass as I'd be comfortable with. It's not, it's not so dark to where I can't actually see any components. So that's nice. Even things that aren't illuminated by LEDs, I can see clearly in a well-lit room. It's probably one of the only positives I have about this frame though. I'm not joking there. I'm not trying to be harsh for the sake of being harsh. Yes, there are tons of channels out there that just like thrive on negativity because that obviously drives clicks, that drives views, and that makes more money. I don't want to turn this into that. This playlist is not, or this little mini series of weird PC cases, is not intended to just take dumps on all these random companies that are usually Chinese startups that are trying to venture into the US and European markets. I'm just, I'm at least trying to give these a shot, okay? And I think that this is just way outside the realm of feasibility for 99% of people. And this will take up a serious chunk of real estate on your desk, for one. Is it a conversation starter? Yes. Are there severe drawbacks? Yes. What else is there really to it? The price is something that I'm curious about because I was under the impression this was a several $100 case, as is usually the case, no pun intended, for unique frames like this. But it looks like it only cost me $160, which I'll be honest with you is a lot cheaper than I thought I paid for this. Maybe that's why I bought it, because it wasn't super expensive. Some of you wanted me to build in like a tank case. They have like a tank case out there. That thing's expensive. It's like $300 or $400. That's what I thought this was, $300 or $400. And the fact that it's 160 makes a lot more sense now in hindsight because they definitely did cut corners. I really think Kediers needs to focus more on the usability of their cases. Yes, they make unique stuff. And again, if that's the only thing you're going for here, this is a heck of a conversation starter. But beyond that, from a utility perspective, it doesn't work. Cable management is awful. The quality control issues are too great to ignore. The scratches everywhere, the dust, the questionable packaging with the just completely destroyed styrofoam in places. Like it just doesn't really instill a lot of confidence. And even for $160, I've got to say, in the realm of unique cases, yes, it's cheap, but it's a cheap case. I mean, it is from a structural, from a From a structural standpoint, it is, for sure. The fact that I could very easily strip the threading in this, like I'm not even torquing this, but like finger tight. I'm not even talking like max, you know, Phillips head screwdriver tight. I'm talking like if I just took my fingers and twisted these, I could strip these threads. That's no good. The paint job is questionable. All around, I mean, like the fitment, the overall fitment of this whole thing, it's not sitting right. It's very easy to wiggle around. Not a fan. If you couldn't already tell, I'm not a fan. Is it for you? Possibly. Let me know in the comment section below. I sure as heck wouldn't spend $160 on something like this. I'd get me a Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic XL, whatever they call it. That's a pretty sweet case for 160, 180 bucks, unless it's come down in price, or maybe it's gone up in price recently. Haven't checked. A lot of other really great cases out there. Corsair 5000D or 5000X, just to name a couple off the top of my head. So if you're looking for a larger case, those options are plenty more viable than this. If you're just looking for a conversation starter or a show build for CES or Computex or something like that, you want to be the really cool guy at a LAN party, bring this. Just bring some duct tape as well, because you're going to need to find a way to fasten this mechanically. This is not cool. Okay. It's not for me, and I have a pretty good feeling it's not for you either. If you enjoyed watching this one, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, consider supporting us on Patreon, joining our public Discord server, and I will catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for building with me.